Ooh, apple teeny. Wow, you can really taste the apples. Can we get 2 apple teenies, please?
Hey everybody, it's Brad.
And it is Gerald.
And welcome into Apple TV Plus. As you know, a lot of you know, this is just a sometimes podcast. We only do
When
this
we feel
when
like
we feel
it.
like it. We talk about stuff from Apple TV Plus, and we are here with a brand new episode. It's been a while, Gerald. We haven't done this in a long time.
It's been a minute. I don't have an Apple Teeny. I have a Diet Coke from Burger King, and I went large. It's a large.
You need the caffeine. You need to get going. I also do not have an Apple Teeny today.
I know. Well, we're also recording at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
It
so
doesn't mean you can't have an Apple Teeny, but
that's true.
we want to tell these lovely listeners out there what what brought us together and what are we going to talk about.
So there was a movie. It's from 2023. It was in the discussion for Oscars. It was actually nominated for a couple Oscars.
It was.
It didn't win anything. It was a pretty big player last year from Ridley Scott, Napoleon, starring Mr. Joaquin Phoenix. And I had never, that was one of the very, very few Oscar quote unquote films that I didn't see last year. And you were saying that you had not had a chance to catch it either. So
That's correct.
it is an Apple TV original produced by Apple TV. We watched it. And so we're going to talk about Napoleon. I know we're about 6 months late, but
That's okay. We're, about 2 years late on the next episode. So it's what our fans expect from us.
exactly. What else would we do? Actually, we're recording this when Napoleon came out. We just got around to releasing it.
There you go. There we go. We can fix that in post. Remember? Oh my gosh, the huge weekend it had.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Before we jump into Napoleon, both you and I are taking part in Live Stream for the Cure, which is May 29th to June 1st.
Raising money for the Cancer Research Institute, and our boy Nick, who is also my co-host on 2Ps, heads it up every year, livestreamforthecure.com. Check it out. You can donate. You can buy merch.
Can you dream of a world immune to cancer? Hello, everyone. My name is Nick, and I'm the host of the annual Live Stream for the Cure, where content creators and podcasters from around the world join me to raise money for the Cancer Research Institute and immunotherapy research, which is training the body's immune system to fight against all forms of cancer. Over the past 7 years, thanks to the power of indie podcasters and the indie podcasting community and listeners just like you listening to this right now, we have raised over $90,000. And as I record this now, the 8th annual Live Stream for the Cure is barreling down upon us really, really quickly in just about 2 weeks. So join us, please, from May 29th through June 1st for 48 hours of amazing content from people all over the world and help us fight for a world immune to cancer. I'll now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. Thank you so much. And together, we can make a difference.
Let me read the synopsis real quick, okay? By the way, there's a really cool feature, Brad. Go to Letterboxd and look up Napoleon on Letterboxd. So it changes the icon, the normal like blue, orange, green Letterboxd icon to the French colors.
Oh, how fancy
French
is
flag.
that?
An epic that details the checkered rise and fall of French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte and his relentless journey to power through the prism of his addictive, volatile relationship with his wife, Josephine. That's the summary on Letterboxd of Ridley Scott's Napoleon. Where do you want to start, man?
Well, we'll just kind of start with some quick overall thoughts before we dive into the spoiler-filled side of things, because I have a few thoughts on this movie. I don't know which way you've gone with this film. I don't think you really know where I've gone with this film. So we're talking about this with each other for the first time. We watched it. That's all we know.
Yep.
What were your overall thoughts of Ridley Scott's Napoleon?
If I was forced to choose between did I like it or like a thumbs up or a thumbs down situation, I'm giving it a thumbs down. I didn't like it. However, it's weird because it's a movie that did fascinate me at times. Like there was probably anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes of the runtime of the movie where I was really fixated on what was happening and was kind of mesmerized by the direction and the performances and some of the fight scenes, the war scenes. But overall, I just am in awe that Ridley Scott, I mean, this is not like it's a first-time director or something, that Ridley Scott, I mean, we're talking Alien, Blade Runner, Gladiator. I mean, the guy has done it on a tip-top tier before.
Yes.
But I'm just kind of in shock that he made a movie that was so boring about such a prominent historical figure, the rise and fall of this guy, a swift rise too, and a name that pretty much anybody of high school age or older knows.
Yeah.
Napoleon. I mean, it was a really slow burn of a movie that, like I said, with the exception of a few scenes here and there, just kind of bored me. And I like history and I like Napoleon's story, and I freaking love Vanessa Kirby. She's one of my favorite actresses, and she fucking slayed in this. She's completely innocent from everything I'm saying. She is Josephine. Is
aside from her
best. But yeah, it was just, I mean, even Joaquin Phoenix's performance. I mean, I want to hear what you think, but is this a comedy? I mean, I felt like I was laughing at this dude. Like, is he trying to make me laugh, or was it just too over the top?
I am very much where you are. Like, it was just a mixed bag for me. There was plenty in it. I don't want to say plenty. There was quite a bit that interested me, particularly in the war and the tactics and in stuff like that. But there was so much just dragging in between these scenes that I was like, come on. I am bored out of my mind. Let's move on. And Joaquin Phoenix, I was like thinking this is one of his worst acting roles I think I've ever seen. I don't know what he was trying to do.
Well, I don't know. That's why I want to ask you is like, what was he trying to do? I mean, was he trying to paint Napoleon as kind of like this wannabe loser who, like, behind closed doors, obviously he was a quote unquote winner on the battlefield. But I mean, behind closed doors in his personal moments, it was like he was almost like, if it was in today's day and age, like he's almost like a geek who is drinking Red Bull and playing some dorky video game. You know what I mean? Like he had like a really weird persona.
It was. And I don't think we can dig further into that without kind of, I mean, this is a historical movie. It's not like you're going to spoil anything. Yeah, Napoleon lived. He conquered. Yeah. He fell and he died. Like,
yeah, that's it.
We're not going to spoil anything, I guess, really.
No. I mean, but we can go ahead and just let everybody know, spoiler warning going forward, because I don't I don't know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, we'll start with him. Like, I felt like I don't know if it was the way the character started out of Napoleon, because in the first battle, he just felt like he was like this scared, timid dude, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of a battle, he's like, okay, step it up, and then let's go from there. And then it was just kind of power hungry in a way, I guess, which I would have liked to see more of, like that behind the scenes, more of that type of stuff, like the war, his lust for power and wanting to conquer and wanting to do that stuff, and less of this kind of this smitten over this woman. Which I get, it was part of his life, but it was just, the way it was pieced together was just weird.
Yeah, it was a weird blending of two different sides of his story.
It felt like two completely different movies cut together that you were trying to watch. It didn't always work.
Yeah, Joaquin in this movie, it's fucking weird. I mean, I'm not saying it's like a bad performance. I'm just saying I don't know what he was trying to do. Like, I don't know what he was going for. Like, because there's parts where it's like literally almost like slapsticky, like Ace Ventura type comedy. I mean, at certain moments.
Dialogue was weird. It was like they went into almost like Shakespearean English and then changed it up. So I was like, what is going on here? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of accuracy in the battles and stuff, and they do the subtitles and the dates for all the different historical battles that he was a part of, but I think that it's also a little bit of revisionist history from Ridley Scott too, because
I mean, any Hollywood movie, yes, they're gonna gotta Hollywoodize it.
But I don't know if the letters to Josephine have they been released? Like, can you read those?
I don't know. I didn't. I guess I didn't dig to see if these letters.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
First, It felt more like we have a voiceover of a diary that he wrote as he's talking. And then I know I texted you at the beginning of the movie. I was like, what is with the French music needle drops? Like it's like these trying to be a dramatic scene and they drop this French music in. I kind of almost felt like everybody needed to move in slow motion at this moment. Like it was some Ridley Scott melded with Zack Snyder or something. Like,
yeah, sure.
That beginning started out weird, and so many just shifts in style. And I will say Ridley Scott knows how to shoot a battle. That
he does.
There's no doubt that he knows how to shoot one of those.
You know, the last war sequence where Napoleon essentially loses his power finally.
Waterloo.
Yeah, I didn't get the names of all the different ones, but it was the last, prominent one. Towards the end of the movie, that was like some of the best wartime action I've seen. I mean, it was a really good, maybe like 15-minute sequence that really kept my attention. It was really bloody, and it didn't hold back. I mean, you got that one scene with the dude playing the drums, and then he just gets blown up.
Yes,
to smithereens.
I mean, even the battle before that, where they kind of surrounded him and they forced him onto the lake, and then started shooting cannonballs into the ice.
And we had seen that on the trailer, which is another thing that bummed me out about this movie, is they did show a lot of the best stuff in the trailer, so it didn't hit you like when you first saw it on screen, because you kind of knew that was going to happen already. And I remember seeing that in the trailer and thinking that was cool.
Lucky for me, I didn't watch the trailer for this before.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, then that probably would benefit you, yeah.
I mean, this movie starts off with a bloody scene where they behead Maria Antoinette.
Mm-hmm, yeah. What I wanted to say about Joaquin's performance before we move on from that is that I took him in Napoleon as somebody who was like a patriot for France and who wanted nothing more than France to be victorious and to be the strongest country in the world. But I felt like he was kind of blinded by that at times and didn't know kind of when to quit. Which is obviously what kind of ended up happening with him at the end of the day.
Yeah, he didn't want to play the political game. He wanted to, I'm in power. This is what's going to happen. Right. Even when he got exiled the first time and he comes back and he's like, I just want to come home. I want to come home. Like the second half of Napoleon, I thought he was much better than that first half. It just, a tonal shift.
He's got those weird... He has the weird line deliveries too. There was one that I rewound like 3 times and rewatched it where he's like talking about his destiny. He's like, destiny brought me these pork chops. It's like the crazy, and he's like eating pork chops. And then he's got that one that I think went viral where he's like, you think you're so great because you have boats. And then he storms off.
Yeah.
I think he was talking to Russia or something. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It was a weird imbalanced performance. Like it was part comedic, but I don't know if it was supposed to be, but it was funny to me. And then it was part like tragic. Like,
yes,
he never played Napoleon as like a menacing figure. He played him either as like a timid, tragic figure who just made that his life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
War basically was his life, which even if you're successful at it is not going to bring you a lot of happiness.
No.
It's all the death that's around you and everything. And the politics, like you mentioned. And then the other part of his performance was just like the moments with Josephine or like, in his castle or whatever. And it was just very weird. Like he was like a strange geek, kind of like wandering the halls.
He
like,
was.
It was weird,
I wanted to know more of his tactical side. Like he explains it at the end when he's exiled on the island and he's talking to those kids about how it's like geometry numbers that I can figure anything out on the battlefield, but I can't teach it to someone. Like that part of it really hooked me in. I was like, I want to know more about how you come up with these tactics that you used. And then if you notice the Battle of Waterloo, he completely flipped upside down. He went against everything that he had done before about the high ground and everything else because they were fighting uphill and then they came down, and he got so power hungry and so lust for this victory that he just completely lost of who he was.
And also what I thought Ridley Scott did really well, and I mean, he's not the only one to have done this, but he really romanticized war in that era, like the dudes carrying the flags and the messengers they would send on horse to the enemy to come back with the, status. And like all these things that was like a kind of like a gentleman's agreement between the two countries that were fighting each other, to have all this kind of like unnecessary stuff that just made it more dramatic. And I know that stuff really did happen, but I thought Ridley Scott did a really good job of, I mentioned the guy playing the drums literally while people are dying 2 feet away from him and bombs are going off next to his head. I think of it romanticized in that way as like the band playing at the end of the Titanic when it's sinking, that kind of shit. And I thought Ridley Scott did do a really good job at kind of using those types of things to like explore the gravity of the situation and how war is so much different. I mean, of course, now we have technology and cell phones and, whatever that they didn't have back then, but it's just crazy. And the way it was shot in this movie, really, it stands out to me a lot, but it's just crazy how these French soldiers would just have their bayonets and they're just like going into the crowd. I mean, they must know like I'm dying. Like I'm literally going into my death,
Warfare then is it was just so different, so weird. Just they're like, you know what? Let's line up and run at each other with our swords and bayonets and even
see how many people are left when we're done. Yeah.
That first one where you had the people in the streets coming down and they just lined up the cannons and started firing into the crowd. I was like, holy crap. The people just like blowing up and body parts everywhere.
Yeah, I think that was like an attempt at insurrection.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's parts about it that are really, really good. There's other parts about it that are just baffling.
Like you said, Vanessa Kirby was good.
Oh, so good.
I would have liked I know it's Napoleon, but kind of a little bit more of her side, because it just kind of, he wrote letters to her. She cheated on him. She couldn't bear children for him. So he divorced her, but they were still like, that was his love. He always was, no matter what. He still wrote letters to her after she divorced and went off somewhere else, and he remarried. Like, title it Napoleon and Josephine and just do that and do the whole thing.
One of the best Letterboxd reviews I saw after I watched it was somebody said that they can't wait for Sofia Coppola's Josephine. Which may be coming. Of course, she did Marie Antoinette, but yeah.
Her Anne Hathaway Les Miserables haircut she had at the beginning.
I know you're probably going to ask me about characters and stuff, but a mile and a half away from everybody else was Vanessa Kirby in this movie. I just thought she was so good. And unlike Joaquin, I mean, they're really the only two like leads in the movie. I mean, there's people that pop up here and there.
Yeah.
Unlike Joaquin, I thought her performance was very consistent.
It was a lot more dramatic, a lot more emotion. It wasn't odd. There was just so much of Joaquin that just, like I said, odd. Like, I don't know if it's dialogue or what his thought process in this Napoleon character was. His take on Napoleon. I mean, there were no water slides or eating ice cream, Gerald. Like, it was completely inaccurate. Where's my Ziggy Piggy? Come on.
I believed her too when she was saying in that one scene, which I thought was a really, really good scene between the two of them in the bedroom by the fire, and they just had their big fight about her cheating and stuff, and she was like, I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing, but she says something to the effect of like, you can't survive without me, you need me, and I believe that. Like, I don't think he would have continued on the path that he ended up making history on that path without Josephine and kind of her influence and his desire to kind of impress her, and win her love. And, I feel like that's true.
Was Waterloo the battle right after he found out she died? Was that that was the next thing that happened? So,
yep.
I mean, it kind of tied together right there.
I mean, basically he didn't have a reason to be, to live. Yes. But he didn't have a reason to be the most strategic, French general in history anymore, because he only cared about how she saw him, and the first thing that he wanted when he found out she died was the letters, because he wanted to have something of, that they shared together. And unfortunately he wasn't able to. That's why I was curious if those were, somewhere where they were available to Ridley Scott when he made this, because I don't know how you would, it's got to be tough because everything in the history books is not even going to mention her probably, It's going to be more about the battlefield.
And I know she was a big part of his life, but I like that how big of a part of a life they made her in this, but it just, again, I keep jumping back to this. It didn't meld completely. I don't know.
Did you ever see the series about Catherine the Great on Hulu called The Great with Elle Fanning?
No.
So it's about Catherine the Great, who took control of Russia in her time as a very, very young woman, and it was a coup, and they kind of overthrew the government, and she was the queen for a while. And so the series follows, her rise, her kind of quick rise, similar to Napoleon's. But see, that show, the tone of that show is always lighthearted, comedic.
Okay.
Like there's like intense war scenes and like things that happen, like, rape and different like serious shit that happens, but the tone of the show is never in question. And it's a very similar, time to when Napoleon lived. So I wish that it was one or the other for this movie too, because the tone would be like slapsticky, but then the next scene, like, people are being blown to smithereens and in tears. And I don't know, it was just like
the tone of everyone but Joaquin was, this is a
they were
serious,
a lot more consistent,
dramatic, historical film.
I agree. That's why it was weird, because it's like, is this guy in the same movie as everybody else? Like, what? And he's in every scene practically. So it's like,
let me ask you. There's the talk of the supposed 4-hour director's cut out there.
Oh God!
Do you think it could make anything in this better or add anything more to it?
Why are we doing the director's cut thing now? Put it on the Blu-ray. If the super fan wants to watch it on the Blu-ray, that's fine. But why?
Like, for instance,
No, I don't.
My
No.
all-time favorite movie is Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven, but the
I know
director's
you love it.
cut version of it that adds 40 extra minutes and a whole storyline that wasn't in the theatrical film that made the movie immensely better. I don't know if this film would have anything like that.
You're you. You love shit like that. This movie was too long as it is. I mean, the only way it can make it better is if, because the inaccuracies here that I'm talking about are because of the editing and because of losing certain things to shorten it down. But otherwise, no. I mean, the movie was too long. It drug it too many times.
There were a lot of moments that drug.
If you keep the big wartime scenes that we get, which are probably like 3 or 4 of them, you make Joaquin's relationship with Josephine not as like, it sucked up so much time from this movie. Which is it? Is it about his relationship with her, or is it about his success to history on the battlefield? Do you know what I mean? Like, putting them together just makes it a very off-kilter experience.
Well, I think if there was, say, more of the relationship of these two and getting to know more than just dramatic moments of meeting her, kind of wooing her, the marriage, then jump to she cheated and all this stuff. But if there was more of what really drove Napoleon with her, I don't think it scratched the surface. You got the point of he loved this woman and he couldn't let go of her ever. Even to the very bitter end, he couldn't let go.
I think a lot of it, I mean, I don't know, of course, but I think a lot of it might have to do with Ridley Scott, at this point in his career. And as he's aging, and some might say, eventually aging out of Hollywood. I mean, he's not going to do it forever. I think he's looking for a different type of storytelling, because he did this with the House of Gucci too. I didn't like that movie either.
That one I haven't seen.
There were scenes in it that I thought were great, very similar to Napoleon, but it just focused too much on like the shit that people didn't know about, which sounds weird because you would think you want to learn something new, but it brings it down. Like, if I go see a movie about Eminem, Slim Shady, I go see a movie about him and I want to see how he became the biggest, rapper in the 90s and all that stuff. But I go see it and it's more so about like his relationship with Kim and like the music career is happening kind of in the backdrop, And I think with Napoleon, the wartime stuff that he's quote unquote known for was happening more so as a backdrop in this film. And when it was done really, really well, I just wanted more of it. Like you already said, Ridley Scott knows how to do a battlefield scene. But, like you look at a movie like Gladiator, which is one of his most popular, Oscar winner. That movie, even the love story with Russell Crowe and of course his family gets killed, and the connection that's like minimal. That's through like flashbacks and like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't take us out of the Gladiator action to like spend 20 minutes with him having dinner with his wife. You know what I'm saying? Like I think he's just kind of shifting to a different type of storytelling, but he still obviously has a soft spot for making these kind of like epic wartime films.
Have you seen The Last Duel, the movie he did before?
Yeah, with Affleck. Yeah, I saw it. I don't really remember it, but I saw it.
He took this situation that happened, the same situation that happened, but told it from 3 different perspectives. Even kind of, because you didn't get much of her side of things. You got pieces here and there of her kind of, you seeing her do things, but seeing her side of everything while he's gone for who knows how long, because he's marching to Egypt to go to a battle. And it's not like they're taking a plane. So it's going to take a while to get there and come back.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know if that could improve that dynamic of the two, kind of showing more things from her side. But then it's, like I said, idea. Napoleon and Josephine, it would be the movie, not just Napoleon.
Yeah, that's an idea. Would have been worth a shot. It just kept taking me out of it. It was too dull at certain moments, and the dullness lasted for too long. You know, if it's like 5 minutes, it's not a big deal. But I mean, this is a 2 hour and like, I don't even know, like 2 hour and 45 minutes or something.
I think that was like somewhere around there.
Yeah, let's tighten this up a little bit. You know?
We already know how much you love a long movie to begin with.
Oh my God. I mean, I had to do this in 3 sittings.
Wow, I did it all in one.
Glad I watched it at home, I guess.
I would ask you, is there anything you would change, alternate ending or anything like that? But I mean, it's based off historical events. He gets exiled. He dies on the island. I did kind of like how they kind of ended it, where he talking to these 2 girls and asking historical, like asking about Russia, capitals, and then Moscow. They're like, who burned it down? And then he was like, me. And the girl's like, everybody knows that they burned it down themselves.
Yeah, it's how he sees himself versus how the public sees
and then you kind of cut to that. He's just sitting there with the ocean in front of him, and then his body just kind of slumps over. And they give like this quick little, hey, here's his reign. How many people died during his reign, which is insane.
I mean, I was okay with it. I mean, there was a lot of text to read in this movie.
There was.
And it was like that weird old English cursive writing. So like, I don't know.
Because I think he played with the letter piece of like writing the letters, and yeah.
I mean, I could have done without all that shit, but I mean, I like you said, it's a pretty well-known historical figure. So like, how are you going to end it? You know, of course you're going to probably end it with his death. I mean, so I don't think anything could have come after that, because the way this movie was framed, nobody really cares about his I think he had a son.
He
right?
did.
I can't remember if it was a son or a daughter, but nobody really cares about his child, at least in the portion of this movie, because aside from him carrying the baby to see Josephine, I mean, he doesn't really talk about it. So
see or hear or anything.
I mean, I think you just kind of have to end it when he dies, you know. So I don't think I would be able to really change anything about that as far as the ending goes. And I think I already said what I would change throughout the duration of the film, is just kind of tighten up those scenes that aren't on the battlefield.
You're like, I want a cool 90 minutes. Let's do it. Come on, Ridley.
Yeah, dude, 2 hours at least.
All right, so
most, I should say.
Get to the point where we rate it. We rate it out of 100. I was thinking rate it out of 100 Ziggy Piggy Sundays. How many would you give it?
I thought you were going to say 100 Josephine corsets, but that's fine. I don't know, man. I really didn't like it. I mean, there was a few scenes that I loved, but the rest of it I kind of hated, so it really drug it down for me. Out of 100, probably like a 48.
Okay.
Ziggy Piggies.
I'm the same. I'm very mixed on it. To me, it was very... The battle scenes were great. All of that war stuff was great, because Ridley Scott just knows how to do that. I mean, you could look back through his career, and every movie that he does war, it's fantastic. More of that, less of the other weirdness. So I'm probably right around with you. I'm probably 55 out of 100.
Okay. Right.
So
yeah, my 48 is basically the battle scenes and everything that goes with that, the cinematography, the score, the effects, all that shit was top tier. And like I said, there were at least 3 of those really, really good battle scenes in this movie, and Vanessa Kirby. So that's my score right there.
You'd say Waterloo was your favorite battle, or do you like any of the other ones?
I think so.
It was the longest one.
I think Waterloo was the best. I think that was the one that he spent the most time on in terms of like the details, and the specifics, and like showing us the drummer and showing us the messenger dudes and showing us Joaquin in his tent while he's contemplating what, what I mean? Like it was a much more detailed battle sequence that was showing all the wheels that were in motion as opposed to just showing the action on the battlefield, which it did do that as well. But that would probably be my favorite. I did love the ice one too. But like I said, I knew that was in the trailer where they, I knew it was coming. So, but I did like it, and I did like seeing a longer version of it because you only see it for a few seconds in the trailer. But yeah, I would say the Waterloo battle for sure.
I think that one, because it's what he's most famous for is the Waterloo battle. Probably is why they made it the longest. But obviously, since we're a Sometimes podcast, you can follow us on our main podcast. You can follow me on my show, Old Man Brad, where I talk all things horror movies, mostly independent horror, but I do it all. And yeah, I have a blast doing it, talking to filmmakers and everything else.
All right, and then 2 Ps on a podcast is me and my buddy Nick talking about new releases, pretty much. Sometimes we do older ones, but we got a movie draft episode coming up next week, and we're going to do that once a month, and then we're going to talk about current releases. And Nick always gives the wrong score on every movie that we talk about, and I always give the correct score. So that's fun if you want to tune in.
Unless you score the same, then it's the right score, right?
I know. Then he finally gets it. He gets it right every once in a while. The last time he got it right, we both gave an 8 to Challengers. So yeah, the last thing we both gave an 8 to was Challengers with my girl Zendaya. So yeah, sometimes he gets it right, but it's like twice a year or so. But I'm working with him. I'm trying to teach him how to watch movies. So that's the journey over on 2 Ps. But yeah,
that'll do it for another episode of Appletini Plus, and we will talk to you. Who knows when? Sometime.
See you guys during the next total eclipse.
Good night.